the noes of 49. The motion is agreed to. I will report this bill with amendment and so divided presently. Members, we now move to consideration of the Commerce Commission International Cooperation and Fees Bill. We're moving to Part 1, that's debate on clauses 4 to 11. The question is that Part 1 stand part. Chris Hipkins.
Thank you very much, Mr Chairman. Mr Chairman, I'm happy to take a brief call on this part of the bill while the other Labor speakers, who hopefully are watching this in their offices, that's Cunliffe, Cosgrove, Quo and various others who may be watching, and I'm sure they're on their way to the House immediately. Of course, they weren't expecting to be here till 9 o'clock because the agreement of the Business Committee was that the budget debate would continue until 9 o'clock. So I'll put on record now that the opposition are very unhappy and that our further cooperation with the government, after an agreement is reached unanimously by the Business Committee and is breached, our cooperation with the government will be much more restricted from this point onwards in proceedings, because the Business Committee does operate on a unanimous basis, and when the Leader of the House gives an undertaking to the Business Committee, we expect that it will be adhered to, and the agreement was that the budget debate would continue until 9 o'clock. So we are somewhat disturbed that that agreement has been breached and that this debate was adjourned before that time that was agreed with the Leader of the House was reached. So I'm sure my colleagues who have more knowledge of the particular clauses in this bill that we are going to be debating, who are watching this and listening into this, will be on their way to the House at the moment. And I can see Mr Cunliffe has just arrived, and I'm sure we'll be happy to pick up the debate as well. After a few minutes, I'll give him a few minutes to collect his thoughts, and then I'm sure he will pick up the debate. But I do want to say, Mr Chairman, that I am incredibly disappointed at this breach of good faith by the government.
Point of order, the Honourable.
These remarks don't seem to relate at all to the topic at hand.
No, well, order. I know the member will come to Part 1 in a moment, but there is a procedural matter which he's referring to, and I'm happy to accept that, but I know the member will come to Part 1. Chris Hipkins.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. Mr Chair, I will come briefly to Part 1 while my colleagues sort themselves out. So, if we look at Part 1 of this bill, basically has two parts. The main provisions of Part 1 set out the cooperation provisions with overseas regulators with regard to restrictions on providing information, the arrangements regarding government-to-government cooperation and what the cooperation agreement must contain. Those are contained in new sections 99C through to 99O. New sections also include procedural arrangements with regard to reporting of the use of cooperation arrangements, conditions of providing information, sharing of information and the maintenance of privilege. So those are the main provisions that are in this particular part of the bill, and I'm sure my colleague David Cunliffe, who I'm sure is about to speak on this bill, or possibly Raymond Who, who is also here, will be willing to elaborate on those provisions further.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Chairman, Labor supports this Commerce Commission International Cooperation and Fees Bill.